The Keeper of Lost Things. Part 1, The Envelope. You find the envelope on a Tuesday afternoon in March, wedged between two ledgers in the archive room of the county clerk's office. The room smells of old paper and lemon furniture polish, and through the single window you can see the maple tree beginning to bud. You've been working here for 3 months now, cataloging property records from the 1980s, a task that requires patience more than skill. The envelope is manila, unmarked except for a date written in pencil on the corner, August 1987. Inside are photographs, Polaroids, their colors slightly faded. The first shows a house, white clapboard with green shutters, a porch that wraps around the front. The second shows a woman standing in a doorway. She's smiling, but tentatively, as though she's not quite sure the camera is meant for her. Dark hair pulled back, a yellow sundress, bare feet on the threshold. There are 12 photographs in all, the house from different angles, the woman in the garden, a bedroom with a quilt on the bed, a kitchen table set for two. You turn the last photograph over and find handwriting on the back. Emma Hartley, 412 Sycamore Road. The name doesn't mean anything to you, but something about the photographs makes you set them aside rather than filing them away. Perhaps it's the woman's expression, that hesitant smile, or the way the house looks somehow temporary despite its solid construction, as though it might vanish if you looked away too long. At 5 o'clock, you lock the archive room and carry the envelope with you. Part 2, The Public Record. The county library stays open until 8 on Wednesdays. You arrive just after 6, when the building is quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional turn of a page. The reference librarian, a woman named Patricia who wears cardigans even in summer, nods to you from behind her desk. You start with the newspaper archive, the microfiche reels that nobody uses anymore now that most papers have been digitized. But the Millbrook Register only uploaded issues from 1995 onward, and you're looking for something older. August 1987. You scroll through days of local news, a county fair, a controversy over zoning regulations, obituaries and wedding announcements. On August 23rd, you find it. Local woman missing. Emma Hartley, 34, of 412 Sycamore Road, was reported missing by her employer on Friday after failing to appear for work for 3 consecutive days. Sheriff's deputies conducted a welfare check at her residence and found the home secured but no sign of Ms. Hartley. According to Sheriff Thomas Brennan, there were no signs of struggle or foul play. Ms. Hartley's vehicle, a 1982 Honda Civic, remains in the driveway. Personal effects, including her purse and identification, were found inside the home. Ms. Hartley moved to Millbrook in June of this year and worked as a bookkeeper at Dawson and Associates. Anyone with information is asked to contact the sheriff's office. You print the article and continue searching. Over the next 2 weeks, the coverage becomes sporadic. A brief update mentions that searchers found no trace of Emma Hartley in the surrounding woods or along the river. Another article notes that her family in Pennsylvania has offered a reward for information. Then nothing. By September, the story has disappeared from the news entirely. You switch to property records, which you know well enough after 3 months of cataloging them. The house at 412 Sycamore Road was purchased by Emma Hartley on June 12, 1987, a cash sale, no mortgage. The previous owner was an estate sale. The house had belonged to a Dorothy Klein, deceased, with no heirs. The property remained in Emma Hartley's name until 1992, when it was sold for unpaid taxes. After that, it changed hands 3 more times. The current owner, according to the most recent entry, is a development company. You close the microfiche reader and sit in the dim library, thinking. Patricia has left her desk, gone to shelve returns in the back. Through the windows, the streetlights have come on, casting orange pools on the sidewalk. The photographs are in your bag. You take them out and spread them on the table, studying the woman's face. Emma Hartley, 34 years old in August 1987. That would make her 71 now if she's still alive. You gather the photographs and slide them back into the envelope, then collect your printouts and head for the exit. Patricia waves good night from between the stacks. Outside, the air has turned cool. You walk 3 blocks to your apartment, a 1-bedroom above a bookshop, and climb the narrow stairs. Inside, you make tea and sit at your kitchen table with the envelope and the newspaper articles spread before you. There's no reason for you to care about this. It's an old case, long cold, but something about it has caught in your mind like a burr, impossible to ignore. Part 3. The house on Sycamore Road. Saturday morning, you drive out to Sycamore Road. It's on the edge of town, where the houses spread out and the lots grow larger. The street is lined with maples and oaks, their branches forming a canopy overhead. You count the addresses until you reach 412. The house is smaller than it looked in the photographs, or perhaps time has diminished it. The white paint has gone gray in places, and one of the green shutters hangs crooked. The porch sags slightly on one side. The yard is overgrown, though someone has mowed recently enough to keep the grass from becoming meadow. You park on the street and sit in your car watching the house. There's a for sale sign in the front yard, faded and tilting. No cars in the driveway, no sign of occupation. After a few minutes, you get out and walk up to the porch. The boards creak under your weight. You peer through the front window, cupping your hands against the glass. Inside, the rooms are empty. Bare floors, bare walls. Light streams through uncovered windows, illuminating dust motes in the air. "Can I help you?" You turn. A man is standing at the edge of the yard, mid-60s, wearing work clothes and holding pruning shears. He has the look of someone who's lived in the neighborhood a long time. "I'm sorry," you say. "I was just curious about the house. I saw the for sale sign." He studies you for a moment, then nods toward the house next door. "I'm Bill Carver, live right there. Property management company hired me to keep the lawn maintained." He gestures with the shears. "You looking to buy?" "Just looking," you say. "Do you know much about the history of the place?" "Been empty on and off for years," he says. "Different owners, but nobody stays long. Foundation's solid enough, but there's something about it people don't like. Rooms feel cold even in summer, that sort of thing." "Did you know the woman who lived here in the 80s, Emma Hartley?" His expression shifts, becomes more guarded. "Why do you ask?" "I came across some old records at work," you say, which is true enough. "Her disappearance. I was curious if anyone ever found out what happened to her." Bill is quiet for a moment, looking at the house. "I remember when she moved in," he says finally. "Summer of '87, kept to herself mostly. Friendly enough when you saw her, but you didn't see her much. Then one day she was gone. The papers said there was no sign of foul play." "That's what they said." Bill shifts the pruning shears to his other hand. "But I was here. I saw the sheriff's deputies going through the place. Whatever they found or didn't find, they were in there a long time." "Did she have visitors, friends?" "Not that I saw. Like I said, she kept to herself. Sometimes you'd hear her car coming or going, but that was about it." He pauses. "There was one thing, though. About a week before she disappeared, I was out here trimming the hedge between our properties. I heard her on the phone, window was open, it was August, hot as anything. She was arguing with someone. Couldn't make out the words exactly, but she sounded upset. Scared, maybe." "Do you know who she was talking to?" He shakes his head. "Never found out. Figured it wasn't my business. Then she was gone, and I wondered if I should have said something to someone. But by the time I thought to mention it, the deputies had already closed up their investigation." You thank him and walk back to your car. As you pull away, you glance in the rearview mirror and see Bill still standing in the yard, watching the house. Part 4. The Employer. Dawson and Associates no longer exists. According to the business registry at the county clerk's office, which you check on Monday morning, the firm closed in 1994. but you find a James Dawson listed in the phone directory, and on Tuesday evening you call the number. A woman answers, elderly from the sound of her voice. You explain that you're researching a historical case and ask if James Dawson is available. "I'm his wife," she says. "James passed away 4 years ago. What case are you asking about?" You tell her about Emma Hartley, and there's a long pause on the line. "I remember her," Mrs. Dawson says finally. "Poor girl. James felt terrible about what happened, blamed himself in a way." "Why would he blame himself?" "Because he's the one who reported her missing. He'd hired her just a month before. She was good at the work, very precise, very thorough. Then one Monday she didn't come in, and Tuesday she didn't come in, and by Wednesday James drove out to her house to check on her. Found the place locked up tight. That's when he called the sheriff." "Did your husband ever talk about her? About what he thought might have happened?" Mrs. Dawson is quiet again, and you can hear the sound of her breathing, considering. "He thought she'd run from something. That's what he used to say. That girl was running, and whatever she was running from finally caught up with her. But he never knew what it was. The sheriff asked questions, talked to everyone at the office, looked through her work files, but there was nothing. She'd done her job, kept her head down, and then she was gone." "Did she mention family, friends, anything about her life before she came to Millbrook?" "Not to James. She was private, professional but private. He said sometimes she'd come in and look like she hadn't slept, but she never said why. He didn't push. Figured everyone's entitled to their troubles." You thank Mrs. Dawson for her time. Before you hang up, she says, "If you do find out what happened to her, would you let me know? James never could let it go, not entirely. I think he'd want to know she's at peace, wherever she ended up." You promise you will. Part 5. The Sheriff's Office. The Millbrook Sheriff's Office operates out of a square brick building on Main Street. Inside, the air conditioning is set too high, and you shiver as you approach the front desk. A young deputy, name tag reading MORRISON, looks up from his computer. "Can I help you?" "I'm researching a cold case," you say. "A missing person from 1987. I wanted to see if there are any records available." He asks for the name and you tell him. He types something into his computer, frowning slightly. "That's before everything was digitized. I'd have to check the archives. What's your interest in this case?" You explain about finding the photographs, about your work at the clerk's office. It's not quite the whole truth, but it's close enough. "Give me a minute," he says, and disappears through a door behind the desk. You wait, standing in the cold lobby, looking at a bulletin board covered with community notices and safety posters. After 10 minutes, the deputy returns carrying a thin folder. "Not much here," he says. "Original investigating officer was Sheriff Brennan. He retired in 1995. Case was never officially closed, but there's been no activity since 1988. He opens the folder, flips through a few pages. "Missing person report, witness statements, search records. Want me to make copies?" "Yes, please." While he's at the copier, you ask, "Is Sheriff Brennan still around?" "Lives up in Riverdale now, about 40 minutes north. I can give you his contact info if you want, but you didn't hear it from me." He slides the copies across the desk, along with a post-it note bearing a phone number and address. You thank him and leave, stepping back out into the warmth of the afternoon. Part 6. The Witness Statements. That evening, you sit at your kitchen table and read through the copied reports. The pages smell faintly of toner and paper dust. The missing person report is straightforward. Emma Hartley, last seen on Friday, August 21, 1987 at approximately 5:30 p.m. when she left her office at Dawson and Associates. Her car was found in her driveway, locked. The front and back doors of her house were also locked. Inside, everything appeared normal. Food in the refrigerator, dishes in the sink, bed made. Her purse was on the kitchen counter, wallet intact, keys on a hook by the door. The witness statements are more interesting. James Dawson's account matches what his wife told you. A coworker named Susan Fletcher reported that Emma had seemed distracted the week before she disappeared, but when asked if anything was wrong, Emma said she was fine. The neighbor, Bill Carver, mentioned hearing what might have been an argument but couldn't provide specifics. There's another statement from a woman named Claire Mortensen, who worked at the post office. She reported that Emma had received several letters in the weeks before her disappearance, all with return addresses from Pennsylvania. Ms. Mortensen noted this only because Emma always seemed anxious when collecting her mail. The final statement is from a librarian at the Millbrook Library, not Patricia, someone named Helen Greer, who retired long before you arrived in town. She stated that Emma had visited the library frequently, always checking out books on legal procedures, property law, and changing one's identity. You read that last statement twice. Then you set the papers aside and sit in the growing darkness, thinking. Part 7. The Pennsylvania Connection. On Saturday, you drive to the library again. Patricia is at the reference desk, eating lunch from a Tupperware container. Back again, she says. You're becoming a regular. I'm looking for information on Helen Greer, you say. She used to work here. Patricia nods. Helen retired about 15 years ago. She still lives in town, though. Oak Grove Assisted Living. You know the place. A quiet facility on the south side of town, well-maintained and expensive. You thank Patricia and drive there, arriving just after 1 o'clock. The receptionist calls Helen's room, and after a brief conversation, directs you to the second floor. Helen Greer answers her door wearing a cardigan and slippers. She must be in her 80s, white-haired and sharp-eyed. Patricia called ahead, she says. Told me you were asking about the Hartley case. Come in. Her apartment is small but comfortable, filled with books and photographs. She offers you tea, which you accept, and you sit together in her living room while afternoon light slants through the windows. I remember Emma Hartley, Helen says. She came to the library almost every week that summer, always quiet, always polite. She read everything she could find on legal matters, name changes, property transfers, protection orders. Did she ever explain why? No, and I didn't ask. It wasn't my place, but I could tell she was frightened. The way she'd glance over her shoulder when she came in, the way she'd sit facing the door. Helen sips her tea. I gave my statement to the sheriff after she disappeared, told him what she'd been reading. I don't know if it helped. The postal worker mentioned letters from Pennsylvania. Do you know anything about that? Helen sets down her teacup carefully. I shouldn't say, it's speculation, really. You wait, and after a moment she continues. There was a man who came to the library once looking for her. This was maybe 2 weeks before she vanished. He didn't say he was looking for her specifically, but he had her photograph. Showed it to me, asked if I'd seen her. Said he was an old friend trying to reconnect. Did you tell him you'd seen her? No, Helen's voice is firm. I didn't like the look of him. Something about the way he held that photograph too carefully, like it was evidence. I told him I hadn't seen her and he left. But I saw his car outside for a while after that, parked across the street. Did you tell the sheriff about this? I tried, but by the time I reported it, he'd already moved on. Said there was no evidence of foul play, no body, no crime scene. Probably she just decided to leave town. People do that sometimes, he said. Do you remember what the man looked like? Helen closes her eyes, remembering. Tall, dark hair graying at the temples, well-dressed like a businessman. He had a Pennsylvania license plate. I noticed because Emma's letters were from Pennsylvania. I wrote down the number, but I lost the paper eventually. This was almost 40 years ago. You finish your tea and thank Helen for her time. As you're leaving, she touches your arm. Find out what happened to her, she says. That poor girl deserves someone to know the truth. Part 8, the drive to Riverdale. You call Sheriff Brennan on Monday evening. He picks up on the third ring, his voice gravelly with age. Sheriff Brennan, my name is, you give your name. I'm researching the Emma Hartley case from 1987. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions. There's a pause. That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. What's your interest? You explain about the photographs, about the cold case. He listens without interrupting. I'm up in Riverdale now, he says finally. Retired, but if you want to drive up, I'll talk to you. I've got time tomorrow afternoon. But the next day, you make the drive north. Riverdale is smaller than Millbrook, a town built around a single main street and a river view. Sheriff Brennan's house is a modest ranch on a quiet street. He meets you at the door, a large man in his 70s with white hair and hands that still look strong. Inside, his house smells like coffee and old books. He leads you to a sitting room where cardboard boxes are stacked against one wall. I kept some of my old case files, he says, gesturing to the boxes. Department was going to destroy them when they digitized everything. I took the ones I couldn't let go of. Emma Hartley's is in there somewhere. He opens a box and begins sorting through folders. You wait, watching him work. After a few minutes, he pulls out a thick folder and sets it on the coffee table between you. I worked that case hard, he says, sitting heavily in an armchair. Harder than most disappearances, honestly. There was something about it that bothered me, still does. What bothered you? He opens the folder, revealing photographs of Emma's house, statements, maps of the search area. The staging, he says. Everything was too neat. Her house looked like someone had arranged it to look normal. Fresh flowers in a vase, but the water was nearly gone. Dishes in the sink that had been there long enough to start smelling. Bed made so perfectly you could bounce a quarter on it, but there was a book on the nightstand with a bookmark about halfway through. Everything was almost right, but not quite. You think someone staged the scene? I think Emma staged it. I think she knew she was leaving and she tried to make it look like everything was normal so nobody would come looking for her right away. He pulls out a photograph of Emma's kitchen. But something went wrong. Maybe whoever she was running from caught up with her before she could leave. Maybe she got scared and ran without her car, without her things. Or maybe, he stops, shakes his head. Maybe what? Maybe she succeeded. Maybe she got out, started over somewhere else. That's what I hope anyway, but I never could prove it either way. You ask about the man Helen Greer mentioned, the one with the photograph. Brennan flips through his notes. I followed up on that, tracked the license plate to a car rented from Pittsburgh, rented by a Michael Hartley, Emma's ex-husband. The room goes quiet except for the ticking of a clock on the mantel. She was married, divorced, 3 years before she moved to Millbrook. I contacted the Pennsylvania State Police, got the records. Michael Hartley had a history, couple of domestic disturbance calls, a restraining order that Emma filed and then dropped. Nothing that led to charges, but a clear pattern. Did you question him? Tried to. By the time I made the connection, he'd left Pittsburgh. His employer said he quit his job in September '87, didn't give notice. His apartment was cleared out. I put out a bulletin, but he never turned up. Brennan closes the folder and looks at you directly. That's what I couldn't prove and couldn't let go of. I think Michael Hartley found Emma. I think he did something to her. But without a body, without witnesses, without any physical evidence, there was nothing I could do. The case went cold and I had to move on to other things. He lets you take photographs of the documents with your phone. As you're leaving, he walks you to the door. If you find anything, he says, anything at all, you let me know. I'm retired, but that doesn't mean I stopped caring about this one. You promise you will. Part 9, The Archives. Back in Millbrook, you spend your evenings at the library, going through old newspapers and records. You're looking for Michael Hartley now, but the trail is faint. He appears in a few Pennsylvania papers, a wedding announcement from 1980, a business directory listing him as a sales manager at a manufacturing company. Then nothing after 1987. On Thursday, Patricia approaches your table with a sympathetic expression. You look exhausted, she says. How long have you been at this? Too long, you admit. I'm stuck. I can't find what happened to him. She sits down across from you. Can I see what you're working on? You show her your notes, the timeline you've constructed, the names, the gaps. She studies it carefully. Have you checked obituaries? She asks. Not thoroughly. It seems too optimistic. Try the Pennsylvania papers. I'll help you look. For the next 2 hours, you and Patricia search obituaries from Pennsylvania newspapers, starting in 1987 and working forward. It's tedious work, but Patricia is patient and methodical. At 9 o'clock, she stops. Here, she says. The obituary is from a Pittsburgh paper, dated November 1987. Michael James Hartley, age 38, died by suicide. Services held at Holy Cross Cemetery. No surviving family listed. You stare at the screen, reading it 3 times. So he couldn't have hurt her, Patricia says quietly. Not if he died in November. But something doesn't feel right. You photograph the obituary and thank Patricia, then drive home through the dark streets thinking. Part 10, the cemetery. Saturday morning, you make the drive to Pittsburgh. It takes 4 hours, and you arrive at Holy Cross Cemetery just after noon. The office is a small stone building near the entrance, and the woman behind the desk looks up when you come in. I'm trying to locate a grave, you say. Michael Hartley, buried here in November 1987. She types into her computer, frowning. I show a burial record, but there's a note here. The plot was purchased by a Margaret Hartley, mother it looks like, but the burial was never completed. What does that mean? It means the plot was purchased and a service was held, but there was no body. Sometimes that happens when someone's cremated and the family keeps the ashes. She prints out a map with a plot number circled. This is where the memorial marker is, if you want to visit it. You take the map and walk into the cemetery. The day is cool and overcast, and the grass is very green. You find the plot easily enough, a small flat marker with Michael Hartley's name and dates. Below that, an inscription, "At peace at last." You stand there for a long time, looking at the marker. Then you take a photograph and walk back to your car. Part 11, the Pennsylvania police. It takes 3 phone calls and 2 days of waiting, but eventually you're connected with Detective Frank Russo of the Pittsburgh Police Department. He's in his 50s, you guess from his voice, and he sounds skeptical when you explain what you're calling about. That's a 40-year-old case, he says. I wasn't even on the force back then. I know, but I'm trying to understand what happened. There's a death certificate for Michael Hartley in November 1987, but no body was buried. I'm wondering if there are any records of the investigation. You hear papers rustling. Give me the spelling and dates again. You do, and he puts you on hold. You wait, listening to silence. After 5 minutes, he comes back on the line. Found something, he says. Michael Hartley was reported missing by his employer on September 15, 1987. Last seen at work on September 12th. His apartment was found with his wallet and keys inside, but no sign of Hartley. A death certificate was issued in November at the request of his mother, based on a suicide note found in the apartment. But no body. No body. The note suggested he was going to jump from the Liberty Bridge. The river was searched, but nothing was found. After a few months with no sign of him, the mother petitioned for a death certificate to settle his affairs. It was granted. Do you have a copy of the note? I can get one. It'll take a day or 2. Where should I send it? You give him your email address and thank him for his time. He says he'll be in touch. Part 12, the note. The email arrives on Wednesday. It contains a scanned image of the suicide note, photographed against a ruler to show scale. The handwriting is neat, controlled. I can't keep running, I can't keep pretending. By the time you find this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry for everything. Tell Mom I love her. Below the scan, Detective Russo has written. Note was typed, Signature appeared genuine but was never verified against known samples. No witnesses to the bridge jump. Case was handled as a probable suicide. You print the email and add it to your growing file. Then you sit at your kitchen table looking at everything you've collected. The photographs of Emma, the newspaper articles, the witness statements, the documents from Sheriff Brennan, the obituary, the suicide note. 2 people disappeared in the fall of 1987. Both were presumed dead, though neither body was found. Both had been running from something. But what if they'd been running together? Part 13, the county records. Thursday morning. You request a personal day from work and drive back to the clerk's office, not to your desk in the archive room, but to the main records department. You fill out a request form for property records and vital records from Pennsylvania, 1987 to 1990. The clerk who processes your request is a woman named Diane who's worked in the office for 30 years. She raises her eyebrows at the request. "This is going to take a while," she says. "We don't have Pennsylvania records here. I'll have to put in an interstate request." "How long?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. You tell her you'll wait and spend the afternoon at the library, reading through old newspapers again. This time, you're looking for anything from Pennsylvania in the fall of 1987, small news items, human interest stories, anything that might mention a man or woman matching the descriptions you have. You find nothing. That evening your phone rings. It's Helen Greer. "I've been thinking about what we discussed," she says without preamble. "About the man who came looking for Emma, I remembered something. He had a scar on his hand, his left hand, across the knuckles. I noticed it when he showed me the photograph." "That's helpful," you say. "Thank you." There's something else. After Emma disappeared, I kept thinking about the books she'd been reading. One of them was about witness protection, about how people disappear when they're in danger. I always wondered if she was trying to figure out how to vanish properly. You thank Helen and end the call, then add a note to your file. Part 14, the 3 weeks. The wait is difficult. You go to work, catalog property records, return home. In the evenings, you spread your documents across the kitchen table and study them, looking for patterns, for connections you might have missed. On the 10th day, you receive a call from Detective Russo. "I did some more digging," he says. "Pulled the old case file on Michael Hartley. There's something I thought you should know. The signature on the suicide note. We never verified it, but I sent it to a handwriting analyst we use now. She compared it to documents we had from Hartley's employment records. She says it's not a match." You grip the phone tighter. Someone else wrote the note. Or signed it for him. Hard to say definitively, but the analyst is confident the signature isn't genuine. After you hang up, you sit very still thinking. If Michael Hartley didn't write the suicide note, then who did? And why? The answer, when it comes, is so obvious you almost laugh. Emma did. Part 15, the theory. You write it out like a timeline, testing the theory against the facts. June 1987. Emma moves to Millbrook, buys a house with cash. She's running from Michael, her ex-husband, who has a history of domestic violence. July-August. Emma tries to build a new life. She gets a job, keeps her head down, reads books about disappearing. But Michael finds her. He comes to Millbrook in August, asking around, showing her photograph. August 21. Emma realizes she's out of time. She stages her house to look normal and leaves, taking nothing that could be traced. But she doesn't run alone. She goes to Pittsburgh to Michael. September 12. Michael disappears from Pittsburgh. Emma stages his suicide, writes the note, and they both vanish. November. The death certificate is issued for Michael. Emma is declared legally missing. 2 people are gone, but nobody is looking for them as a pair. It fits. It explains the gaps, the coincidences, the careful staging. But it raises new questions. Why would Emma help Michael disappear? Why would they run together after everything he'd done to her? unless he hadn't done anything. Unless the restraining order, the domestic disturbance calls, the whole history. Unless that was something else entirely. Part 16. The records arrive. The envelope from Pennsylvania arrives on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after you filed the request. Inside are photocopies of property records, death certificates, and marriage licenses. You spread them out on your kitchen table and start reading. Michael Hartley and Emma Hartley, married July 1980, divorced March 1984, clear enough. But then there's a property record from December 1983, a house in Harrisburg, purchased jointly by Michael and Emma Hartley. The house was sold in February 1984, just before the divorce. You pull up a map of Pennsylvania on your phone and search for the address. The house was in a quiet neighborhood, middle class, nothing remarkable. You switch to the county records for Harrisburg and find the deed transfer. The house was sold to a couple named Douglas and Patricia Henderson. You're about to move on when you notice the sale price, $50,000, reasonable for the time. But according to the purchase record from 1983, Michael and Emma had paid $120,000 for it. They sold the house at a significant loss, quickly, right before their divorce. You dig deeper, pulling up tax records, permits, anything related to that address. And there, buried in a stack of documents, you find it, an insurance claim from January 1984. Fire damage to the property. Payout, $75,000. The pieces shift, rearrange themselves. Michael and Emma bought a house in 1983. In early 1984, there was a fire. They received an insurance payout, sold the damaged house at a loss, and divorced. You search for news articles from Harrisburg in early 1984. On January 18th, you find a brief item, suspicious fire under investigation. The article mentions a house fire on the same street, but doesn't give the specific address. Investigators suspected arson. No arrests were made. You lean back in your chair, staring at the ceiling. An insurance fraud case. That's what this was about. Michael and Emma had tried to burn down their house for the insurance money, but something went wrong. They were investigated, though never charged. The divorce was probably part of the attempt to distance themselves from each other. But if the authorities suspected fraud, they might have continued watching both of them. And if Michael and Emma were still connected, still working together despite the divorce, they would have needed to disappear. Part 17. The insurance company. The next morning, you call the insurance company listed on the claim document. After being transferred 3 times, you reach a woman in the archives department who agrees to search for records related to the Hartley claim. "This will take a few days," she says. "These records are in off-site storage." "I understand. Anything you can find would be helpful." While you wait, you return to the library and search for more information about insurance fraud investigations in Pennsylvania in the mid-1980s. The results are sparse, but you find a few articles mentioning increased scrutiny of suspicious claims, particularly fire damage. On Friday, the woman from the insurance company calls back. "I found the file," she says. "The claim was paid out in March 1984, but there's a note here that the case was flagged for fraud investigation. The investigation was handled by an outside adjuster named Robert Chen. According to our records, he submitted his report in June 1984, concluding that while there were suspicious circumstances, there wasn't enough evidence to pursue legal action." "Do you have contact information for Robert Chen?" "He retired in 2005. I don't have a current address, but I can give you his last known employer." She does, and you spend the weekend tracking Robert Chen through public records. On Monday evening, you finally reach him by phone at his home in Philadelphia. "The Hartley case," he says when you explain why you're calling. "God, I haven't thought about that in decades. What do you want to know?" "I'm trying to understand what happened. The fire, the investigation, everything." Chen is quiet for a moment. That was a strange case. The fire was clearly arson, accelerant used, multiple points of origin. But the Hartleys both had solid alibis. They were at a restaurant 30 miles away when the fire started. Multiple witnesses confirmed it, so we couldn't prove they set it themselves. But you thought they were involved. I thought they hired someone, but I couldn't prove that either. The fire department investigated, we investigated, the police looked into it. Nothing. Eventually the company paid out because we didn't have grounds to deny the claim, but I flagged their file. Both of them. If either one tried to make another suspicious claim, we'd know. Did they? Not that I'm aware of. After the payout, they divorced and I never heard about them again. Why are you asking about this now? You explain about Emma's disappearance, about Michael's alleged suicide. Chen listens without interrupting. So they both vanished, he says when you finish. That's interesting. Why? Because if they were trying to escape consequences, maybe from the insurance fraud, maybe from something else, disappearing separately would be smarter than running together. But if they disappeared around the same time in the same way, he trails off. Well, it suggests coordination. Part 18, the letter. On Tuesday, you drive back to Harrisburg. It takes most of the day, but you want to see the house where the fire happened, want to stand where Michael and Emma stood. The neighborhood is older now, the trees taller. The house itself has been renovated, new siding, new roof, a modern addition on the back. You park across the street and watch it for a while, but you're not sure what you're looking for. After an hour, you drive to the county courthouse and request copies of the complete file on the fire investigation. The clerk brings out a slim folder containing the fire marshal's report, photographs of the damage, and witness statements. You sit in the courthouse reading room and go through everything carefully. The fire had started in multiple locations: the basement, the kitchen, and a bedroom upstairs. Accelerant was definitely used. The damage was extensive but not total. The house was salvageable with significant repairs. The witness statements are routine. Neighbors who saw the smoke called 911, watched the firefighters work. The Hartleys' alibi checked out. They'd been at dinner with friends when the fire started. But there's one statement that catches your attention. A neighbor named Alice Brenner reported seeing a car parked in the Hartleys' driveway earlier that evening, before the fire. She didn't recognize the car and didn't get the license plate, but she remembered it because it was parked there for several hours. You photograph everything and leave the courthouse. It's late afternoon now and you're tired. You find a coffee shop and sit by the window, drinking tea and thinking. Someone else set the fire. Someone Michael and Emma hired, or someone who had another reason to burn the house down. But who and why? The answer comes to you as you're driving back to Millbrook, watching the sun set over the highway. The insurance payout was $75,000. Split two ways, that's not enough to start over, not really. But it's enough to pay a debt. Maybe Michael and Emma didn't hire someone to burn down their house. Maybe someone else burned it down to send a message, or to collect on a debt they owed. And maybe the insurance money was how they paid that person back. It's speculation, but it feels right. And if it's true, then Michael and Emma didn't disappear because of the insurance fraud. They disappeared because of whoever they owed money to, whoever had burned down their house. Part 19, the mother. You've been avoiding this, but you can't anymore. You need to talk to Michael's mother, the woman who petitioned for his death certificate. It takes 2 days to find her. Margaret Hartley, now Margaret Stone. She remarried in 1995. She lives in a retirement community outside Pittsburgh, and she agrees to meet with you on Saturday afternoon. The community is pleasant, well kept. Margaret meets you in the common room, a woman in her 80s with white hair and Michael's eyes. She walks with a cane but moves steadily. You said this was about my son, she says as you sit down. I haven't talked about Michael in a long time. I'm sorry to bring it up. I'm trying to understand what happened to him and to Emma. Margaret's expression hardens. Emma, that woman ruined my son's life. Can you tell me about that? She's quiet for a moment, deciding. Then she begins. Michael was a good boy, smart, hardworking. He met Emma in college and they fell in love. I was happy for him, but after they got married, things changed. Emma had these ideas, these plans. She wanted money, wanted a certain lifestyle. Michael tried to give her everything she wanted, but it was never enough. What kind of plans? Get-rich-quick schemes, investments that never worked out. They bought that house in Harrisburg, spent every penny they had on it, and then it burned down. The insurance money barely covered their debts. After that, they divorced. Michael said it was for the best, that they needed a fresh start. Did you believe that? Margaret shakes her head slowly. I wanted to, but I could tell something was wrong. Michael was scared. He wouldn't say of what, but I could see it. He kept looking over his shoulder, jumping when the phone rang, and he was drinking more. When was the last time you saw him? September 1987. He came to visit me, said he had to go away for a while. Wouldn't say where or why. I begged him to tell me what was wrong, but he just hugged me and said he loved me. A few days later, his boss called to say Michael hadn't shown up for work. Then the police found the note. Did you believe he'd killed himself? Margaret looks down at her hands folded in her lap. I didn't want to believe it, but what else could I think? He was gone, the note was there, and nobody could find him. So I did what needed to be done. I buried an empty casket and tried to move on with my life. Did Emma ever contact you after Michael disappeared? No, I never heard from her again. Margaret looks up, and there's something fierce in her expression. But I always wondered if she had something to do with it, if she dragged him into something terrible and then run away, leaving him to deal with the consequences. You thank Margaret for her time and drive back to Millbrook in the gathering dark. Your mind is churning with everything she said, everything you've learned. The picture is becoming clearer, but there are still pieces missing. Part 20, The Archives Revisited. Monday morning, you request another personal day and return to the county clerk's office. This time, you go straight to Diane in the records department. I need to see every property transaction in Millbrook from June through September 1987, you say. Specifically, I'm looking for cash purchases or unusual sales. Diane gives you a long look. This is about that missing woman, isn't it, Emma Hartley? Yes. All right, give me an hour. She brings you 3 boxes of records, and you set up at a table in the corner and start going through them methodically. Most of the transactions are ordinary, mortgages, normal sales, estate transfers. But then you find something interesting. In July 1987, a property at 89 Lakeside Drive was purchased for cash by a company called Clearwater Holdings. No mortgage, no liens. The sale price was $85,000. You pull up the current property records for that address. Clearwater Holdings still owns it. You search for information on Clearwater Holdings and find almost nothing. A registered agent in Delaware. No other properties, no business filings. On impulse, you drive out to Lakeside Drive. The road runs along the north shore of Miller Lake, a small body of water surrounded by woods. Number 89 is a cabin, set back from the road and partially hidden by trees. There's a mailbox at the road, but no name on it. You park and walk up the driveway. The cabin is small, maybe 2 bedrooms with weathered siding and a stone chimney. The windows are dark. You knock on the door, but there's no answer. Walking around the cabin, you peer through windows. Inside, you can make out furniture covered with sheets, dust on the surfaces. The place looks like it hasn't been occupied in years. You go back to your car and sit, thinking. A cash purchase in July 1987 by a shell company. A cabin that's been sitting empty for decades. It's too much of a coincidence. Part 21, The Search. Back at the clerk's office. You ask Diane if there's any way to find out who's behind Clearwater Holdings. Not from here, she says. You'd need to contact the registered agent in Delaware, and even then they might not tell you. That's the whole point of a shell company, to hide the real owners. But you have another idea. You go to the tax assessor's office and request the property tax records for 89 Lakeside Drive. The records show that taxes have been paid every year, always by check from a bank in Pittsburgh. You call the bank and ask to speak to someone about an old account. After being transferred several times, you reach a manager who listens to your question and then tells you they can't release account information. I'm not asking for account details, you say. I just need to know if an account associated with Clearwater Holdings is still active. The manager puts you on hold. When she comes back, she says, I can confirm that we have an account for that company name, but it's been dormant since 1992. The last transaction was a check for property taxes. 5 years after Emma disappeared, you thank the manager and hang up. That night, you can't sleep. You keep thinking about the cabin on Lakeside Drive, sitting empty for 35 years. Someone bought it with cash in the summer of 1987. Someone paid taxes on it for 5 years and then stopped, letting the county handle it. On Tuesday morning, you call Sheriff Brennan. I think I found something, you tell him, and explain about the cabin. He's quiet for a long moment. You think Emma bought that place. I think she or Michael bought it as a safe house, somewhere to hide if things went wrong, but I don't know if they ever made it there. Give me the address, Brennan says. I'm coming down. Part 22, The Cabin. Sheriff Brennan arrives Wednesday afternoon. He's brought 2 other men with him. One is the current sheriff of Millbrook, a man in his 50s named Warren, and the other is a deputy. They meet you at the county clerk's office, and you show them everything you found. This is thin, Sheriff Warren says, looking through your documents. A shell company buying a cabin isn't evidence of anything. But it's worth checking, Brennan says firmly. If there's any chance Emma or Michael were there, we need to know. They get a warrant. It takes until Thursday morning, and you all drive out to Lakeside Drive together. The deputy has brought tools to open the cabin if necessary, but when they try the door, it's unlocked. Inside, the air is stale and cold. Dust covers everything. The furniture is old, circa 1980s, a couch, a table, chairs. In the kitchen, there are dishes in the cupboard, canned goods in the pantry. You check the dates on the cans, 1987. Brennan and Warren go through the cabin systematically while you and the deputy wait outside. After an hour, Brennan calls you in. He's standing in the bedroom looking at something on the floor. It's a duffel bag, old and dusty. Inside the bag are clothes, men's clothes, size large. At the bottom of the bag is a wallet. Brennan opens it carefully. Inside is a driver's license for Michael Hartley, expired 1988. There's cash too, $300 in 20s and 10s. He was here, you say softly. Looks like it. Brennan sets the wallet aside. But when and where did he go after? Warren is searching the rest of the cabin. In the bathroom, he finds toiletries, towels. In the kitchen, he finds food that was never eaten. Everything suggests someone planned to stay here but didn't. No sign of Emma, Warren says. No women's clothes, no personal effects. You walk through the cabin again slowly, looking at everything. It's a place prepared for hiding, for waiting, but it feels abandoned, not lived in. In the living room, you notice something you missed before. On the mantel above the fireplace, there's an envelope. You point it out to Brennan, and he takes it down carefully. Inside is a letter, handwritten, undated. If you're reading this, I didn't make it. Tell my mother I'm sorry. Tell her I tried to do the right thing, but I was in too deep. Emma deserves better than this. She always did. Them. Part 23, The River. They search the area around the cabin for 2 days. Cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar, a team of volunteers combing the woods. They drag the lake. It's small enough that they can do it thoroughly. They don't find a body. But on the second day, they find something else. About a quarter mile from the cabin down by the shore of the lake, there's an old rowboat pulled up into the weeds. In the boat, they find more clothes, women's clothes this time, including a yellow sundress. You recognize it from the photographs. The dress Emma was wearing in the picture from the doorway. The dress is damp and mildewed but intact. There's nothing else in the boat, no shoes, no purse, no identification. Just the dress and a single photograph, faded and water-stained. The photograph shows Michael and Emma together, smiling, arms around each other. On the back, in handwriting you now recognize as Emma's, Pennsylvania, 1982. Sheriff Warren calls off the search that evening. Without a body, there's nothing more we can do here. We'll keep the case open, but we've found everything we're going to find. Brennan stays behind after the others leave. You and he sit on the porch of the cabin as the sun sets over the lake, not talking, just thinking. What do you think happened? You finally ask. Brennan is quiet for a long time. I think they came here together. Maybe they were running from whoever they owed money to, maybe from the law, maybe from both. They had a plan, hide out here, wait for things to cool down, but something went wrong. Michael's letter sounds like a suicide note. It does, but there's no body in the lake, no evidence he went into the water. And Emma's dress in the boat, that doesn't make sense either. Why would she leave it there? You watch the last light fade from the sky. Maybe they both left. Maybe they're still out there somewhere. Maybe, Brennan says, but he doesn't sound convinced. Part 24, the documents. The next week, you compile everything into a report. All the documents, all the witness statements, all the connections you've traced. You send copies to Sheriff Brennan and Sheriff Warren, and you file the original at the county clerk's office, properly archived this time, where anyone looking for information on Emma Hartley will be able to find it. You call Detective Russell in Pittsburgh and tell him what you found. He listens carefully and says he'll reopen the Michael Hartley case, see if there are any leads worth pursuing. You call Margaret Stone and tell her about the cabin, about the letter Michael left. She cries when you read it to her over the phone. At least now I know, she says. At least now I know he didn't just abandon everyone. You promise to send her copies of everything, and you do. Helen Greer calls you one evening to ask about the case. You tell her what you can, and she's quiet when you finish. So they were in it together all along, she says. The man I saw wasn't hunting Emma, he was protecting her. I think so. Poor things, Helen says. Whatever they were running from must have been terrible. Part 25, the photograph. You keep the photographs that started everything, the ones you found in the archive room. They're not evidence in any legal sense, but they feel important somehow. You have them on your desk at home, arranged in order. Emma in the doorway in her yellow dress. Emma in the garden. The bedroom with its carefully made bed. The kitchen table set for two. Sometimes you look at these photographs and try to imagine who took them. Was it Michael, documenting their new life? Or did Emma take them herself, creating a record of something she knew wouldn't last? In April, you get a letter forwarded from the county clerk's office. The envelope is postmarked from Seattle, with no return address. Inside is a single sheet of paper with a message typed on it. Thank you for caring enough to look. Some stories don't have endings, just ellipses. We're okay now. We have been for a long time. The letter isn't signed beyond that initial, and there's no way to verify it's really from Emma. But you read it several times, and something about it feels true. You file the letter with your other documents and don't tell anyone about it. Some mysteries you're learning are meant to stay unsolved. Part 26, the house. In May, the house on Sycamore Road sells. The new owners are a young couple with a baby. You see them moving in one Saturday, carrying boxes and furniture, laughing together in the yard. You drive by slowly, watching. The husband is on a ladder, rehanging the crooked shutter. The wife is on the porch, sweeping away years of accumulated leaves and dust. The baby is in a carrier, watching everything with wide eyes. The house doesn't look haunted anymore. It looks like a home. You think about stopping, about telling them the history of the place. But what would you say? A woman lived here once, and then she disappeared, and we still don't know the whole truth about what happened to her. Instead, you drive on. Let them have their fresh start. Let the house be just a house again. Part 27, The Archive. You go back to your regular work at the county clerk's office, cataloging property records, filing documents. Your supervisor mentions that you did excellent work on the Hartley case, that your thoroughness is appreciated. She offers you a small raise, which you accept. But you don't stop thinking about Emma and Michael. In quiet moments, you find yourself wondering where they might be now. Seattle, according to the letter, but that could be misdirection. They could be anywhere. You imagine them in a small town somewhere, living under different names. Michael working in sales again, maybe, or something quiet. Emma keeping books for a local business. Both of them older now, grayer, carrying the weight of what they left behind. Do they think about Millbrook, about the cabin on the lake, about the people they left wondering? You hope they've found peace. Whatever they were running from, debt, violence, the law, you hope they got far enough away that it doesn't matter anymore. Part 28, The Records Room. On a Tuesday in June, you're back in the archive room where this all started. The room still smells of old paper and lemon polish. The maple tree outside the window is in full leaf now, casting dappled shadows across your desk. You're cataloging a box of records from 1988 when you find another envelope, tucked between ledgers just like the first one. This one is labeled in faded ink, Property Transfer, Clearwater Holdings. Inside are documents relating to the sale of the Lakeside Drive cabin. But these aren't county records. These are personal papers, a letter from a lawyer, instructions for the transfer, a note about paying the property taxes through 1992. And at the bottom of the envelope, there's one more photograph. It shows a lake at sunset, the water reflecting pink and gold light. In the foreground, a rowboat is tied to a small dock. The boat is empty except for a yellow dress draped across the seat. On the back of the photograph, in Emma's handwriting, where we said goodbye. You sit with the photograph for a long time, understanding settling over you slowly. They did meet at the cabin. Michael left his wallet and his letter, staging his own disappearance. Emma left her dress and the photograph in the boat, staging hers. The lake was their stage, the cabin their final act together before they each went their separate ways. Or did they? The photograph is dated on the back, September 1987, the same month Michael disappeared from Pittsburgh, the same month the suicide note was found. But the note was a forgery. Emma wrote it, you're almost certain now. And if she wrote it, then Michael knew about it. They planned this together, his disappearance, her disappearance, the careful staging of two separate tragedies. And then they left. Together or separately, you'll never know for sure. But they left, and they stayed gone, and somewhere in the world they might still be, living the life they couldn't have as Michael and Emma Hartley. Part 29, The Letter You Don't Send. That night you write a letter to Emma, or to whoever sent you the note from Seattle. You write it by hand, taking your time, trying to say what you want to say. Dear Emma, I found your photographs. I found your house, your story, the pieces you left behind. I spent months following your trail, trying to understand what happened to you. I think I understand now. You and Michael were in trouble, debt maybe, or something worse. You tried to burn it all down and start over, but it didn't work. So you ran, and when running wasn't enough, you disappeared. I hope you made it. I hope wherever you are, you're safe. I hope the people you owed, the people you feared, never found you. I hope you got to live the life you wanted. I'm not going to look for you anymore. Your story deserves to end here, with uncertainty and hope instead of answers and sorrow. Be well. You don't sign the letter. You don't address it. You fold it carefully and put it in your desk drawer where it stays. Part 30, the season turns. Summer comes to Millbrook. The archive room grows warm in the afternoons despite the air conditioning, and you take your lunch breaks in the park, sitting under trees and watching people go by. Sometimes you see the couple who bought the house on Sycamore Road. They're at the grocery store or the hardware store buying the things new homeowners buy. The baby is bigger now, starting to smile at strangers. They look happy. Bill Carver, the neighbor, stops you one day at the post office. "I hear you're the one who solved the Hartley case," he says. "I didn't solve it," you tell him. "I just found out more about it." "That's something," he says, "more than anyone else did." You don't tell him about the letter from Seattle or the photographs in the envelope or your theory about what really happened. Let him think it was a tragedy, pure and simple. Maybe it was. Part 31, the anniversary. August comes around again. August 21st, to be specific, exactly 39 years since Emma Hartley was last seen in Millbrook. You drive out to the cabin on Lakeside Drive. It's still empty, still owned by Clearwater Holdings. The county has put a lien on it for unpaid taxes, but the sale process moves slowly. For now, it just sits there, windows dark, waiting. You walk down to the lake, to the place where they found the rowboat. The boat is gone now, taken as evidence, though evidence of what, no one is quite sure. The weeds have grown back where it was pulled up on the shore. The water is calm, reflecting the late afternoon sky. You stand there for a while, thinking about endings and beginnings, about the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of disappearances. Maybe Emma and Michael are together somewhere, living under new names, still running after all these years. Maybe they separated, went different directions, built different lives. Maybe one or both of them didn't make it, and their bones are somewhere you haven't looked, somewhere no one will ever look. You'll never know for certain, and somehow you've made peace with that. Part 32, the archive closes. In September, you get a new assignment at work. They're digitizing older records now, and you're being moved to a different department. Someone else will take over the archive room, the filing, the quiet work among ledgers and dust. On your last day in the archive room, you stay late. The sun sets outside the window, painting the maple tree in shades of amber and rust. You go through the shelves one more time, running your fingers along the spines of ledgers, the boxes of old photographs and documents. You think about all the stories hidden here, all the lives recorded in property transfers and marriage licenses, in deeds and death certificates. Emma Hartley is just one of thousands, tens of thousands, one story among many. But she's the one you found, the one you followed, the one you cared about. You lock the archive room for the last time and hand in your key. Part 33, the phone call. In October, you get a phone call from Sheriff Brennan. "I wanted you to know," he says. "I heard from a contact at the FBI. They were going through old files, digitizing everything, and they found something on Michael Hartley. He was being investigated for embezzlement back in '87. Never charged, but there was an active investigation when he disappeared." Embezzlement from where? His employer. About $100,000 over 2 years. They were building a case, getting ready to bring charges. Then he vanished and the case went cold. You think about this. The insurance money was $75,000. If Michael embezzled $100,000, that's $175,000 total. Enough to disappear on if you were careful, if you had help. Did Emma know, you ask? No way to tell. But if she helped him disappear, if she forged that suicide note, she probably knew something was wrong. After you hang up, you update your files with this new information. It doesn't change the story much, but it adds another layer. Michael wasn't just running from debt or from whoever burned down his house. He was running from embezzlement charges from federal investigators. And Emma helped him run. Part 34, The Winter Light. November brings the first snow. You watch it fall from your apartment window, coating the street in white. The bookshop below is closed for the day, and the street is quiet. You've been thinking about writing all this down properly. Not as a report for the sheriff or a collection of documents, but as a story. The story of Emma Hartley and Michael Hartley, or as much of it as you know. You're not sure why. Maybe because their story deserves to be told, even if it doesn't have an ending. Maybe because you spent so much time with them, in a way, following their trail, that they've become real to you in a way most historical figures never do. Or maybe you just want to put it all down so you can let it go. You start writing on a Thursday evening. The snow is still falling, and your apartment is warm and quiet. You write about finding the photographs, about the house on Sycamore Road, about all the pieces you collected and tried to fit together. You write through the weekend and into the next week. The story grows longer than you expected, more complex. There are tangents you don't include, theories you've abandoned. You stick to what you know, what you can document, what makes sense. By December, you have a manuscript of sorts. Not publishable, not polished, but complete. You print it out and read it through, making notes in the margins. It reads like a mystery with no solution, which is what it is. Part 35, The Bookshop. The woman who owns the bookshop below your apartment is named Sarah. She's in her 60s, has run the shop for 30 years. In January, you take your manuscript downstairs and ask if she'd be willing to read it. What is it, she asks. A true crime story, kind of. About a woman who disappeared from Millbrook in 1987. Sarah takes the manuscript and promises to read it. 2 weeks later, she calls you down to the shop. This is good, she says. Sad but good. You should do something with it. Like what? Publish it, self-publish if nothing else. People are interested in local history, in unsolved mysteries. This is both. You hadn't thought about publishing it. It was just something you needed to write, a way of processing everything you'd learned. But Sarah is persuasive, and by the end of the conversation, you're considering it. Over the next month, you revise the manuscript. You add more context, more background on Millbrook in the 1980s. You try to be fair to everyone involved: Emma, Michael, the people who knew them, the investigators who tried to find them. In March, exactly 1 year after you found the first envelope, you publish the book yourself. It's a small run, just 100 copies, sold through Sarah's bookshop and a few other local stores. Part 36, The Response. The book sells slowly but steadily. People in Millbrook remember the case or remember hearing about it. They buy copies, read them, talk about them. Some people contact you with their own memories of Emma or Michael, small details that didn't make it into the official record. An old woman calls to say she saw Emma at the library once, crying in the stacks. A man who worked at the gas station remembers Michael buying a map of the western states. None of it changes the story, but it adds texture, depth. In April, you get an email from someone who doesn't leave a name. The subject line says, "Thank you." The email itself is brief. "I read your book. You got most of it right. The only thing you got wrong is thinking we had a choice. Sometimes you run because running is all that's left. Thank you for telling our story with kindness." You read the email 3 times, then save it in a folder and don't tell anyone about it. Part 37, The Spring. May comes again, warm and green. You've settled into your new job at the clerk's office, and the archive room feels like a long time ago, even though it's only been a year. Sometimes you think about Emma and Michael. You wonder if they're together somewhere, or if they went their separate ways. You wonder if they're happy, if they ever think about Millbrook, if they know that someone spent a year of their life trying to understand what happened to them. Mostly, though, you've let them go. Their story is told as much as it can be. The rest is theirs to keep. Epilogue: the second envelope. On a Tuesday in August, 2 years after you found the first envelope, you're walking past the archive room and see the new archivist standing in the doorway. She's young, maybe 25, with an uncertain expression. "Can I ask you something?" she says when she sees you. "Of course." "I found an envelope between some ledgers. It has photographs in it, and I don't know what to do with them." You smile. "Can I see?" She hands you the envelope. Inside are photographs of a different house, a different woman. The woman is standing in a garden, smiling at the camera. On the back of one photograph, June 1972. You hand the envelope back to the young archivist. "File it properly," you say, "and if you're curious about the story, follow it. You never know what you'll find." She nods, still uncertain, and goes back into the archive room. You continue down the hall to your own office, thinking about stories and endings, about the people who disappear and the people who remember them. Outside, the sun is shining. The maple tree is in full leaf. Somewhere, you think, Emma and Michael are living their lives, whoever they are now, whatever they've become. And that's enough. That has to be enough. You sit down at your desk and return to work, cataloging the present, one document at a time.